Hey, good morning, guys. My name is Dr. Rob, the Addiction Doctor, along with Jennifer Lovery, my co-host. This is the Recovery Channel podcast, and today is Friday, the 19th of the 2nd. How you doing, Jen?
I'm good. You know what? I had a date last night, so I'm a little tired.
Okay, tell all. You can't get away with just saying that. Come on, tell us.
No, I know. So Daniel took me out on a date. We went to a very swanky little place in Sedona. So, socially distanced and mask worn, all the good stuff. But it was so fun to just be out and interacting and seeing human beings, which is tough in this world when, not having interactions with people has been tough for the last year. So anyways, we stayed out late and we just had a really nice dinner and just got to talk and catch up. It was fun. We need that connection.
We do. Absolutely. I think a lot of people in this pandemic is absolutely forgetting about the communication and the contact with other people. Yeah. I always have a friend. I got 5,000 friends on Facebook. It's like, no, what you have, my good man, is plugged into the fucking wall. That's what you are. That's not going to get you by. We need that, touch. We need that, whether it's mass or not mass or 6 feet, we need that stuff. But yeah. I don't know. I think there's a lot of stuff going to happen after this all clears up, if it clears up.
Oh, I think that we're not even aware of the cost that it will have cost us as humans to not have that contact. I mean, even just the waiter, like talking to him about, he's traveled, he's from Italy. It was just, interesting. Like just having that kind of connection was, you forget how important that is, and we do all this telehealth and the thing is it's great and it's not the same. I don't care what anybody says. It's not the same.
Yeah. I was just saying before, I had a telehealth with my doctor yesterday and, he prescribed some medication that I'm not 100%, agree with. And we chatted it out. But he said, it's not the same. I can't feel you. I can't feel your pulse. I can't talk to you face to face. I don't know whether you're falling down, laughing, stroke. I mean, it's just really hard. But the only time that we felt it here is the last 3 or 4 days while the snow is, you just can't get out of the house right now. But before, when the pandemic was on, we're out in the sticks, as you know, so we could get out, we could wave to people, right. Travel around. But right now, it's just like nothing for 4 days. And that is driving me a little crazy.
I bet. I can imagine.
So, guys, I know what you're thinking today. Who's on the show? Well, Jennie is on the show. Jennie Ketchum. You probably heard of her. If you haven't, she's absolutely awesome. Did a little bit of research on before you come on. Jen's actually been on her podcast. So she'll have a bunch of questions going on. So stick around, guys. We'll be back in 30 seconds after this short break. Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Dr. Rob, the Addiction Doctor, along with Jennifer Lovely. Thank you for watching, guys. I can see the viewers going up already. We have Jennie Ketchum on the show. Good afternoon, Jennie. How are you?
Yeah, living that pandemic life dream. Just like staying at home, talking to people through masks and screens, and trying to continue on.
It's crazy. It's crazy how we've all adapted. I must admit that. But what I liked, part of it, when it first started, I noticed all the families out walking, and that was cool because you never saw that where I live. It's, dad's at work, mom's at work as well. So that was cool. And over the last 4 or 5 days, 3 or 4 days, sorry, the snow and everything, we had a guy next door, Jenny, he is 80 if he is a day, and his wife. And we're thinking, we'll go around there later and we'll do this. He knocked at the door. He stood there, this 84-year-old man, with a 5-gallon bottle of water because he thought me and my wife were struggling. I'm like, oh my God, how cool is that? It's phenomenal. Okay, Jennifer, question's yours.
Oh, thank you.
I couldn't think of one, sorry. I'm miles away.
I thought you went to college. Anyway. I
know, right?
So for the audience that doesn't know Jennie, so early on in my healing, way back in the day, not really, but I read Jennie's book, I Am Jennie. And I was obsessed with the honesty, the transparency. And I'll be quite honest, I remember reading some of the stories and being actually turned on by the graphic detail of your story, knowing that that was actually hitting home my own personal story. And so if you guys haven't read I Am Jennie, especially you ladies out there, please read it, especially if you've gone through some adverse childhood experiences. So tell me a little bit about your book, if you would like to, but really I'd like to get to know more about how your history, drugs, alcohol, and a little bit about how you got into your recovery and now that you're a psychotherapist. I'd love to know more about that.
Yeah, so I drugs, alcohol, how I got in. Yeah, it's an interesting task to sort of try to sum up like 38 years in like a nice concise pitch. And so here goes. So I started using marijuana at like 12, 13. God, it sounds pumpkin. I also have a 3-year-old in the room watching Cars right now. So we'll see how this goes. Hey, sweetheart, can you just do a double check on our little angel made out of sugar and everything we love? And I have a husband who's going to buy. So this is what a pandemic looks like for us right now. This is just sort of the reality of it. Yeah. So you know, I started using drugs when I was an adolescent. And that just sort of continued. Parents divorced, a very typical ugly divorce. And there was a lot of experimentation in my youth. And I think a variety of like emotionally invalidating experiences with my mom. My dad had been sort of like bastardized through the process of divorce. And so I didn't talk to him for like 13 years. And yeah, so got through high school, used drugs, and then as soon as I got to college, I decided to get into porn. And it was, I think, both a decision that was based on like a desire to have access to as much money and thus like pot and the lifestyle that I wanted. And also this sort of like really like visceral need for love and attention and affection. So that was, I mean, that was like my entry point into the sex industry. And I spent 8 years in the sex industry, and it was a mixed bag, you know, like I had a great time. I met a lot of really wonderful and amazing people. I don't know any of their real names. I don't know anything about them other than what I saw of them on set. So there was tension between this, like, we're living this amazing life and we get to do all these incredible things, and I'm traveling the world and it's all so sexy. And then also this sort of like profound emptiness that went with not actually knowing or being like emotionally in touch with anybody. And I sort of find like a lot of parallels between like what we're going through now in this like pandemic context and like the experience that I had. Like there is this sort of like, there's connection here, right? Like I can see you on a screen and I can, but they're really like, we're sort of missing that like intimacy and that like sensory experience of being with other humans. And in porn, it was like just like sensory experience being with other humans, but it really lacked that like emotional intimacy that is so important, like that psychological intimacy that's so important for us as humans. And so anyway, so I at some point got connected with the VH1 people. They were doing a Dr. Drew's show on sex addiction. And I thought, well, this is going to be the perfect launch pad for my career, because like I'm not a sex addict, like I'm a workaholic, right? And there was this sort of like cheekiness in how I went into that experience. And then what happened was I went into rehab, and I had in my mind, you know how sometimes like you have this like conceptualized version of how things are going to go, and then like when that sort of crashes against reality, you're like, holy fuck, like what just happened? I can swear. Can I swear? I can swear. I can swear.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay, perfect. It's a recovery show. So, anyway, so there was a collision between what I thought was going to happen and what actually happened. And like what I thought was going to happen was I was going to launch my porn career. What actually happened is that I got sober, and people started calling me Jennie. And there was this sort of like reconnecting back to this identity that I had started to form when I was much younger, and I didn't get a chance to form in my adulthood. Yeah, and so what led me to become a psychotherapist? So VH1. So I did the Dr. Drew show. I did Sober Living with Dr. Drew, like a wild and like profoundly meaningful experience that I think doesn't end up getting the credit that it deserves. But I actually, VH1 actually paid for like 3 months of free therapy. Like they knew they had opened a can of fucking worms. They were like, oh Jesus. So they offered aftercare, and the two people that they plugged me in with, Jill Vermeer, she was one of the therapists from the show, and then a guy named Dr. Reef Kareem. He was a psychiatrist working out of a place called the Control Center, which I think he's since sold, but he was like an addiction specialist, and plugged me in with both of them, and they both continued to see me for like 2 years, 3 years after the show for free. They didn't ask anything of me. And I mean, perhaps, I don't know, I have a lot of stories about like why, right? But like, I have no fucking idea why. They just kept seeing me. And I kept showing up, and my life kept getting better. And I kept seeing like these really like amazing changes in all of these different life areas. Like I went back to school, I developed this like really meaningful relationship with a person who is now my husband and like the father of my daughter. I started developing like friendships and like hobbies and things that like meant something to me. And I started to have this vision of what my life could be outside of alcohol, outside of using other drugs, and outside of sex work. And it was really a transformative experience. And so I made the decision to like be a part of that and to be a part of that for other people.
I like that. I like the way you went back and helped other people. Let me go back real quick, because
sure,
there is an emptiness inside the addict and alcoholic that nobody else has experienced because of the way our brains are different to other people's. That loneliness and emptiness is almost like a pain that doesn't go away 24 hours a day. So with that being said, go back to the abandonment, because it was there somewhere. I want to know about that. First of all, when was it? And secondly, when did you realize that was tied into the addiction?
Yeah, I think that is a great question, and one that I don't know that I can accurately point to. I think I can point to a bunch of different data points that like pop up in my head, and I do so like while also recognizing that like I have a negativity bias, and these are the points that I have identified, not to say that they're the right points. So, I think in terms of my model for what psychological connection looked like, my parents were not intimate. They didn't like, I didn't have an opportunity to imprint on them in a way that was like meaningful. My mom, bless her heart, like she has her own addiction stuff. And I mean, yeah, I hesitate to diagnose her, but we don't talk. We are estranged, right? And so like the relationship that I had with her was also like chronically invalidating. And so I think there was like an emotional abandonment that happened pretty early on. She had her own priorities. And I wasn't really allowed to have like emotional experiences without them becoming her emotional experience.
Like enmeshment. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So just quickly, Jennifer. So Jennie, did that abandonment and the relationship broke down and no intimacy being shown, but more enmeshment, did that influence the porn career? Because of you wanted to be loved or wanted to be really?
Yeah, I think it probably primed me to make those decisions. Like I think it made those decisions work for a long time, and until they ultimately didn't work. I think it served a purpose for sure. And I think in the same way that like we often use alcohol or drugs to like numb everything because it hurts so much, right? And it's like, oh, well, this is a wonderful numbing agent until it stops numbing us. And then we're like, oh God, everything still hurts. And also I've lit everything on my life on fire. Yeah. So I think there was like enmeshment and stuff with my mom when my parents divorced. There was a lot of stuff there, and like, my mom started spending a lot of time at work. And so like the one connection that I did have that was psychological with somebody, even though it was like relatively unhealthy, that became absent as well. And drugs and alcohol was just the thing that made sense to make it work. There he goes. I love him. So
get him on.
Yeah, it's the best. Yeah.
That is so funny. I love that we have become much more human inside the pandemic and allowing our lives to just like, this is what's happening. My dog's barking, my husband's walking behind me, my kid's crying. I love that allows this connection that before we pretended like that stuff didn't exist.
Yeah. And this is what it is. This is what it looks like.
Yeah. So you get through, you're in the midst of porn and you're on VH1 and you begin the work. Talk to me about the resistance that showed up inside of the work of recovery from even being called Jennie as opposed to your other name that you used. Talk to me about what that was like, or was there resistance?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's resistance at every pass, right? When they called me Jennie, I was like I would walk down the hall because it had been so long since anybody had called me Jennie, and I didn't know who they were talking to, and it took a lot of stepping back for me to be able to identify like a sense of purpose that was outside of this identity and this like piece of content that I had really developed about myself. And there's resistance in that, right? Like there was a lot of safety in being Penny Flame. That it was this sort of really finely tuned, predictable vehicle for existence, and it also contained a lot of pain. But it was also something that like I had structured well, and served a purpose. And so, sort of like letting go of that piece of content as the defining thing about me was really challenging, and it took a lot of work. I think, I mean, I was, and I know there's a lot of like, don't say the word in public stuff. I was in AA for a long time, and like, I think the step work really helped me to do that. I think that it's funny because like going into step work, I had this sort of idea about like repentance and like making things right and like the amends process, right? And I mean, hindsight is always 20/20, but now having quite a bit of distance from actually doing amends work, I see so much of it. Like it's not about atoning for my sins. It's about like really coming in contact with forgiveness. And like, that is such a different perspective than I went into that work with. And that's something that I've really been cultivating in my later years. And I mean, I started drinking again. So I got sober in 2009, April 2009. I was sober for about a year and 2 or 3 months. And I thought, no, it's probably just the cocaine and like, porn. Those are probably the things that were problematic. Probably not whiskey. So I started drinking again, and it was definitely also whiskey. It's definitely also like any sort of mood altering substance is something that I will use in a way that numbs everything from here down. So so I think that was another piece of resistance that I had to learn, like at an experiential level, why it didn't really work in my life.
So if we look at when we come from a family, mine the same, but there's no love shown. We can't say certain things. We're taught how to lie from an early age. Don't say this, don't say that outside the house. We're given every tool in the world to self-sabotage. But I think the AA book, the first 164, is the most profound piece of literature ever wrote. And I studied over 20 years on neuroplasticity and the addictive brain. That's what I specialize in. But that 164, man, I'm telling you, it's absolutely phenomenal. So do you actually work a 12-step program yourself now?
I don't now, so I actually ended up, so I was part of Pacific Group out in LA.
I spoke there, yeah. There was loads of people there. There's like 400 people there. It's crazy.
It's an amazing group. And that was
Yeah.
my home group. And so I was like, it was like a huge part of my life. And then when I moved to Seattle for grad school, I really struggled to plug in up here. The AA scene is very different here than it is in LA. But what I ended up doing was finding a mindfulness-based relapse prevention group through University of Washington, and going through that 8-week group really changed my experience of addiction and what it means to be someone who is struggling with addict. I mean, it is the living, breathing 11th step, right? Like cultivating your meditation, or like meditation and prayer, and like how important that is. And so so I don't actively work a program up here, and also I actively work the program in all of the ways that I'm like living, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And having spent so much time in Washington, the programs up there are different. Definitely, in my opinion, just not as connectedness as like LA or Orange County, where I was currently. So I know exactly what you're relating to. So I love to ask this question because I think it gives people like a deeper understanding of the person. So I have a philosophy that our struggles are kind of like when we are, it's like a chicken inside of an egg, and it's really trying to crack open and be born, if you will. And I imagine that that's what our souls are experiencing as we're trying to crack open and find who we truly are. And I'm curious, what is it that wanted to crack open inside of you, Jennie, that you weren't able to do in the midst of your suffering?
I think my own like common humanity, like I think part of addiction says that like this is only my problem, and it has this reinforcing quality to it that makes us feel so alone. And I think in coming in contact with our pain, we also get to come in contact with our shared humanity, right? Like, I am not the only one who suffers in this way, and I'm not the only one who experiences pain in this way. And I don't know that I have cracked fully open yet. I think it is this like lifetime cracking process, right? Like, for example, I just joined this group at Spirit Rock called Year to Live, and it's like a year-long meditation on death, and like from Stephen Levine's book, and it's just like it's already proving to be like the most profound experience of my life, and it is like framing all of my decisions in terms of like if I only have a year left to be a human, like how do I want to choose to spend my time, right? And so I think for me, like the cracking open is it is this like continued recognition of like I am here, and sometimes pain is here with me and in me, and how will I choose to live in the presence of this pain with my common humans, like with my people, like with us.
I know that Jennifer has a saying, and it's, if we live to 85, let's say, and you take your age now, that's how many summers you've got left. And it's quite startling when I heard that, because when I look at me, I've got 25 summers left, and yet I think I've got a lifetime, but you haven't. One of the biggest things I took from the 12-step program and the 164 was living now, living today as if it's your last day. What can I cram in today? And for me, it's the only way to live, because I have a mind that wants to kill me, make it look like an accident, and there's no doubt about that. So I have to be careful and use these tools. But I also think, interesting point what you just said, and figures show, this is not my opinion, figures are showing that success rates of AA have plummeted to less than 7%. So people are searching out other means of recovery. And from what I can see, it's working. It really is working. Because what happens at AA is we allow these treatment center guys to come in and take over by these heavy drinkers. We just want to talk about shit for 20 minutes and get the voice heard. And they've never worked the program. So there's imposters in there. So you got to be really careful. Best time and worst time, Jenny. The best time of your life and the worst time of your life.
Oh, Jesus. Already I'm going to start crying thinking about both. So 3 years ago, so my daughter Elsie, right? She's 3 years old. 3 years ago on January 21st, that's my sobriety anniversary. We threw our baby shower, and then the next day I found out that my dad had terminal cancer. And they gave him 2 to 6 weeks to live, and Elsie was due in 4 weeks. So I moved we moved all of our prenatal care down to Vancouver, Washington, to be with my dad when he got transitioned into hospice. And that time with him was just the best and the worst time, because God, you just come in contact with what really matters as a human. And it is these relationships and the people who have grown us, for all of the shit from my childhood with my mother. My father really was this protective factor in my life. And in that time when he was in hospice, there was so much healing that happened on the footstep of death's door, and so much forgiveness and so much acceptance. Getting to see him, God, he asked the oncologist, she came in and gave him this spiel about, oh, you can do this and you can do this. And, and he goes, cut the bullshit. If you had my diagnosis and you knew what you know, what would you do? And she goes, oh, I would go straight to hospice, and he goes, okay, sign me up. And they took him off all of the meds like that. What a gift to get to see someone turn towards their final moments with such grace and integrity and acceptance. So getting to walk through that and not needing to drink to deal with it, and not needing to use, and I heard this when I was in the rooms, they'd be like, yeah, I walked through my parents' death and I didn't need to drink. And I was like, that's fucking absurd. There was this sort of obviousness to the statement that I thought was so painfully contrite, and then walking through it was oh man, I got to be present for that. And then so he died on February 13th of 2018, and then it was Valentine's Day, and then I got a C-section and my daughter was born on the 15th. And so best and worst week of my life, best and worst month of my life, and also just a testament to the human spirit.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I have some obsession with from because it teaches us how to live.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a guy up in San Francisco, BJ Warren. Do you know who I'm talking about, Jenny? He actually he was at Princeton, and he got electrocuted, lost some of his limbs, and it brought him very close to death, which then he became a doctor, and he opened up his own place for hospice where we can to die gracefully. And so I was just watching a documentary on him, and it really is such a beautiful space in which we're able to see both.
Yeah.
And so I'm my condolences, and I'm so sorry. And at the same time, what a beautiful experience for you to have with your dad, especially in terms of we can never make up time, but that you got to have that time with him. Yeah.
Thank you.
I like that.
Yeah.
Wow. Stop making us cry, Jenny.
Oh my God,
I was
fuck.
all in tears in a minute. I mean, it's just, yeah. The thing I like there though is, I don't think Jennifer, we've had, the worst and bad that I always, the worst and good that I always ask. We've never had it in such a short time. I mean, goodness me, within a few weeks. I mean, usually people go back to the childhood and go, oh yeah, this happened, and then 50 years later, this. You had it all in the same month. I mean, I don't know whether that's good or bad, but God bless you. Yeah, it always makes me smile a little bit when I hear people in 12-step rooms go, "Oh, my mum died, but at least didn't drink." What the fuck has drink got to do with this situation? This drink's a symptom. It's how you cope. That's when you find if someone's truly in recovery. How do you cope when this shit happens? And I love what you said. I get to walk through. You didn't get to go through. You get to walk through it. The experience, the compassion, I mean, it's just mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. Guys, Jennie Ketchum's on the show. We'll be right back after this short break.
What did you say? I missed you.
Jennifer Lovely and Jenny's on the show. Jennie Ketchum, great story so far.
I think my system was slowing down.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
In my car.
It'll come back in a second.
Yeah.
Jenny, give me a useful tool today that you use going forward, and what you would. I mean, I know there's hundreds, but what you would give somebody coming to you going through what you've been through. What's a useful tool you would say, or a bit of advice that you would give them?
Yeah, I mean, try not to take yourself so literally. Like that. Sometimes we ask ourselves these like really big, meaningful questions, like who am I, or like what's the point of this, and I think. And evidence-based practices show that when we get locked into this like really rigid, literal framework of thinking, that our behavior narrows and our life gets smaller, and sometimes the universe shows up and it asks you big questions like, how are you going to show up, and who are you going to be in this moment, and if you can learn to sort of linger. An ACT therapist says this, this researcher, Kelly Wilson, says, can you linger in the significance of these big questions? And I would invite you to, like, when the universe shows up and asks you big questions, sort of sit back and like linger in the significance of these questions. Like, let them like fill you up. All of you.
And moments as well.
Yeah, totally. And then choose something that's important to you. Like choose an action and a life that means something to you, that is like deeply meaningful to you, and then live it.
Yeah, there's nothing better than that. I don't care if you want to be, if you're working in a factory sweeping the floors for 50 years, leave your mark. Oh, Johnny, he was always there for us, guys. He was an absolutely amazing guy. And after I come off the street, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to leave a legacy. Yeah. That Rob, even though he's a gobshite, even though he's got a big mouth and he curses, he wasn't a bad guy. Because look at all the people he helped. That's all I want in life. The rest just came to me. But I don't want anything else, just be helpful. And people think I'm crazy when I say that. Yeah, look at you. You're all rich. I don't mean a shit to me. You can take all this away tomorrow. Leave me with my wife and my 4 English bulldogs in a tent in the middle of the field. Then you'll see the true Rob, show himself. But it's really hard. Me and Jennifer's been on a few programs, and people, they rate, oh yeah, look at them, they're up there. And I get it all the time with being on TV. Is like, no, that's not really the real me. The real me when I was on the streets and had nothing to fucking eat and drink and not bathe for 12, 14 months. There
Yeah.
you really get in touch with yourself.
Yeah.
So if we are given a second life, like we all have here, I know Jennifer with the kids, and me and you, Jenny, with the experience we've been through, we're the only people that get 2 lives in one lifetime. Why the fuck would you mess the second one up?
Yeah.
Shut up. This guy in one of the meetings, I've been 50 years sober. Especially when the young girls come in. Oh, yeah, I'm 50 years. I don't give a fuck how long sober you are. What have you done for somebody? When's the last time you helped? When's the last time you bought lunch for somebody walking off the street? When's the last time you talked to someone and complimented them? That's the shit I want to hear. I'm not interested in sobriety. My sponsor of 40 odd years took me back home, feeded me coffee with sleeping tablets and raped me. Don't give me that shit with all the years. Where's your heart? Where's the quality of life that you're living? And I honestly think, now correct me if I'm wrong, Jenny, that we get not only a second chance, but we get to be kinder. We get to be better moms, better husbands, better people, better psychotherapists, whatever we do. Because if I'm walking into a counselor, the first question I'm asking is, have you been through what I've been through? Well, I don't suffer from alcoholism or addiction. Bye. Oh, yeah, but I've been to college for 150 years. Bye. Because you'll never know what I'm going through when I want to fucking drink. Because I will stab you in the face if you won't let me. Normal people can't understand that. They're like, you must be crazy. I stabbed my wife 3 times one night because she won't let me drink. Can you imagine what I'm going to do to you, a stranger? I mean, you've got to know that mentality, Jenny, that where people are when they come in to see you, surely. And that's helped you as you go along.
That's why I'm not in Texas.
Yeah. Oh, it happens everywhere.
I have a long fork. Hey, the first thing Jennifer did when she came to visit us, she hid all the fucking forks. I don't know why. The
knives. Rob, I wasn't sure if you were going to ask a question, but what I was really curious is you've gone through, you've had really a beautiful life, Jenny. I mean, in terms of like when you look at even the muck, I mean, even in all of it, it was so much beauty. I mean, I could see that as I read your book. And I'm curious, what is the impact that you currently want to have in the world now that you have healed, aka still healing, you're a mom, like what is the impact that you want to have?
Yeah, I think there's that is a big fucking question for me, right? Like I think there's these like micro, meso, and macro levels of impact that I'm hoping to make in this world. Like I want to be a good mother and teach my daughter how to be like a kind and gentle human. Like that is like deeply, even saying that, God, fuck, you love somebody so much and you just want them to like be so kind to themselves, that's really important to me. And then I also like I want to do like mental health prevention work. And I think that's so I've applied to PhD programs. I just did an interview with University of Reno for their applied behavioral analysis program, and looking at I'd like to research like the impact of process-based therapies in like clinical, subclinical, and like non-clinical populations, because I think there's so much work that we can do on the front end to teach people about like being psychologically flexible human beings, so that we don't have to deal with it on the back end, right? Like I think we can prevent a lot of suffering if we address it up front. I mean, the impact. My grad school, UW, they've started teaching to impact. The School of Social Work, they used to teach to competencies, right? This idea that like you leave and you become a competent social worker, and now they're really trying to teach to impact. So I think it's such an interesting shift in perspective. Like, yeah, you can be good at something, but like, what difference are you making in the world? And I think, Dr. Rob, that's really what you were touching on. Like, yeah, you're good at not drinking booze every day, but like, what the fuck does that matter if you're not like contributing to
Nobody
the world.
cares.
So
Nobody
yeah,
cares.
no, that means nothing.
You know?
Like you don't live in a vacuum. Like that is like the alcohol is not the problem at all. You know, the alcohol was the thing that helped. So I want to continue to like help people shift their lives in like profoundly meaningful ways. Yeah.
Always makes me smile when people go, "Hey, it's the alcohol. I'm an alcoholic." No, fuck that. Your head was fucked many months ago, years ago. Your
Totally,
head was
Alex.
different to everyone else's when you were born. And
Yeah.
I often ask people, I go, "Well, there's a predisposition in your family with alcoholism. Have you warned your children? Have you had the talk, like you had the sex talk? Have you had the alcoholic rearranged brain talk? Oh no,
Yeah.
they're too young for that. I don't want to scare them." That's what's missing.
Yeah.
The three things that's missing in alcoholism, as far as I'm concerned, is education, education, and education.
Agreed.
We know more about it today. It's not
Yeah.
an alcoholic is not somebody who picks up a drink one day and decides to drink a lot of alcohol. That's not alcoholic. That's a guy who drinks too much alcohol or abuses alcohol. There's difference. When I put alcohol in my body and the next door neighbor might drink more than me, but something happens to me bodily and mentally that the guy next door doesn't happen to. And we need to tell our kids this, and we need to tell them about education, and we need to tell them that, you know, you're loved and you're liked and attaboys. My parents never told me that. My dad never said I love you. I suffered for that in the days. I used to be really timid. I couldn't have anyone near me. I couldn't accept a compliment. Oh, hey, Rob, I see that T-shirt's nice. Oh, it's just something to throw on. You know, I bought it the day before. But I'm not going to tell anybody that in case they make a fuss of me. I had to learn all that. And I think what you're probably doing, Jenny, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're teaching your child to do that, to accept, to behave properly, to be aware, to be loved. You know, research shows that if we tell our children every day that we love them, their life will be better. Not only because they have self-worth and value, but you have a better, clearer look on life. And I think that's very important. Abandonment ruins people and they never see it. Oh, well, there's no abandonment and trauma in my career. You're a fucking chronic alcoholic. Of course there is. Let's go back and look at it. And the one I like to do as well, I'm sorry for shouting out my own shit here, but I think this is very, very important. You know, when we go back, look at childhood trauma. What is it? You know, a normal person, mom says, "Hey, get down off that chair, you stupid idiot." That's what a normal person hears. What the addicted alcoholic brain hears is, "Get down off that chair, you stupid idiot." And that carried on with me. Of course, you can't go to college, Rob. Nobody's been to college in our family. Just work at the gas station like your dad did. That's what you're supposed to do. Have 3 kids, go into the pub every Friday and Saturday and drink, and that's your fucking lot. No, not for me. I knew there was something out there that we could educate, like all 3 of us on here are doing. It's all about education. The reason we started this podcast was the only reason is how many people can we get on to tell their story and the prevention of the subject, not in the middle or the end. It's too late. It really is too late.
Yeah. Yeah. I was reading an article on that like hereditary, like the passing down of the behaviors, right? And it was talking about how behaviors and these behaviors that become like intergenerational problems, it's more like folding a paper and less like rolling up a paper. Like once you crease that paper is creased forever, right? Like you cannot uncrease this paper, and that crease is often something that gets passed down through generations. And what our options are is to teach other creases that help us live different lives. And so we're not relying just on this one crease, like this is how I deal with pain, right? Like we also teach like kindness is a crease in your paper, and you learn to like behave kindly and to treat yourself with kindness. That's a new crease. And suddenly your whole paper is creased, and it's not just this one crease that's informing how you show up in the world and how you respond to the world. Like we can't just like unroll ourselves and be like, oh, the next generation isn't going to suffer in this same way. Like the paper has been creased, and this crease will get passed down. And so I am being really intentional about teaching my daughter other ways to crease her paper when those moments of suffering and pain show up.
Yeah, for sure. I love that so much. And I think, and like for me, getting healthy, I mean, lucky for you, you're healthy before she's growing up, right? So for me, it's like having to redo all of, you know, the stuff and recreasing the paper and really show them that, hey, mom has recreased the paper, so can you, you know, as they're adults, you know.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I don't think that we talk about very much, and maybe you do, Jennie, in your practice, is, you know, what was right about addiction?
Yeah.
Reframing the conversation, because what was right about the addiction is it fed a need that we didn't have when we were young, right? So for me, having lots of sex fed the need for me to be loved and touched and validated that I was okay. And you know, I recently been reading this book called, I'm sure you know of it, Existential Kink. And what it does is it allows us to see like the other side of our stuff and reframe it from a place of like, oh, I was just needing love. And that really allowed me to love myself different than how my parents creased their paper.
Yeah.
You know?
Profound. I like that, Jennifer. I really like that.
Because
let me tell you guys something now. I'm going to share this before, and I've never shared it before, and he's just hit me and made me water. So, as you know, Jennifer, I got in touch with my daughter after 20, 30, I don't know how long it was, 25, 26 years. She wasn't in my life, Jennie. And the authorities took him off when she was 3. Well, we got in contact two years ago, and I've been over there, and the relationship's great. But I was speaking to the other, and I always say, okay, I love you. And she never says anything back. Now, when I go back to what I just said with my dad, never telling me, then I've passed that shit on to her. Because I mustn't have told her when she was young because I was too fucking drunk, you know?
Because it hurt too much.
Day. Yes.
I mean, maybe because you were fucking drunk, but also maybe because like loving somebody also, like that comes with pain. Like that comes with like the potential of losing them.
Yeah.
It's horrible. I'm still paying for my mistakes now, 30 something years on. And I think I'll be ever paying. And people, you know, yeah, my life's amazing. Yeah, I'm at peace. Yeah, I still worry about money in the bank because I'm a homelessness. Yeah, I still do this. But the bottom line is I'm paying for the rest of my life because my youngest daughter still won't get in touch with me. She's done. She was done at the age of 1. In actual fact, I saw a Facebook post and it says, I do not have a dad. Jesus.
She's in a lot of pain.
Yeah. Really hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what it is, you know. It's just. See, my oldest daughter was I'm really good at cutting people off, ladies.
Yeah.
Really I mean, clinical. I think Jennifer's the same. She's talking about somebody who's bang, it's gone. I have no, you're done. I mean, nothing. I'll block you. I'll do it. None. And I did that with my eldest child. Is it had to go because I would have committed suicide thinking about that shit every day. It's the same, you know. One of our dogs, Woodhouse, he leaves us tomorrow because he won't get into the pack and he has to go tomorrow, 3:00. We're doing a visit. If it goes well, the dog's staying there. That's gonna fucking crucify me. When I was drunk, it wouldn't have done. I'm spinning it now because this is the good shit I get to do today. But it's going to be dramatic. There's going to be trauma there for me. Yeah. But at least I can go through that stuff today. And I think it's really important that we get to do this. You know, you get to walk through your father's passing. And then you get to be sober and clean when your baby's born. I mean, holy shit. Does life get any better than that?
I don't know that I can ask for much more.
No, I know. When I met my daughter for the first time after 30 years, 20, I don't even know how long it was. This is what happened to me. We went over there. She contacted me on Facebook Messenger. I woke up 2:00 in the morning, bing, and I'm always looking at my phone because I'm a concierge doctor. We've got to be available 24 hours a day, and it's a fucking nightmare sometimes. But I looked at it. It was Charlotte, and she says, "I want to see you, Dad. I've heard all about you. You turn your life around." So we flew over on the next red eye, and we were there within 12 hours. I met her at the door. And I'm talking about, you know, getting to your pinnacle of life. Yeah. She opened the door and we hugged and we cried. And it was just absolutely amazing. And then she says, Dad, come inside. I've got something to show you. So I'm thinking it must be a picture of me and her or something or a new TV. And she walked me into the living room and handed me my 3-month-old granddaughter. that I had no idea existed. And if I would have died right there and then, I'd have been a happy man. But my higher power, my universe guy says, no, we're not ready for that, Rob. This is what I'm taking you through. Because when I was on the streets, Jennifer knows this, I fucking hated everything and everybody, even God. But now I realize I had to go through that to be the person I am today, because people come out and go, yeah, Rob, you don't understand. You've never had your kids, check. You've never been raped, check. And it's all checked off. And it's like in your job, well, all of our jobs really, we get to walk people through that shit because we've been through it. Imagine trying to do that out of a textbook. It won't work. Because that communication again, that feeling, you know, that intimacy with another person shows you that you've been through it. I think we all have an amazing gift in here, and I think we all are so lucky to be where we are.
Well, and you know, the thing that I'm really present with, and one of the things that I'm really present with my clients and our patients, Dr. Rob and I's patients, is that, you know, we have these 5 stages of grief, and then they added the 6th stage, which is meaning. And at any time in our life, we are all sitting in one of those stages of grief. And for me, for years, I got stuck in just sitting in anger. I couldn't get to acceptance. I couldn't get to, you know, this self-love. And now, you know, as I've, you know, done deeper inner work and been able to be with and walk through the pain, is like, I'm beginning to see what the meaning behind it is. I can actually put all of the dots together as to, oh, that's why this happened. And oh, that's why that put me here. And recently I had a really good friend come visit me from California, and she was mad and she got into this rage. She's like, why does everything have to be so meaningful with you? I just want to go back to home again when we just talked fucking shit. Why does everything have to be so meaning? And I was like devastated. I mean, I'm laying on the couch crying, and I go, because if I didn't make sense of it, I would have died. I would have killed myself. How, you know, so when we begin to look at all of that, my question to you is, Jennie, is what is the meaning that you've made of all of that?
Yeah, I think you know, there's a saying and act that you find your values in your pain, and you often find pain in your values. You know, and I think every moment for me that has been meaningful has also contained some piece of pain, right? And for me, I look back at my life, and I think the thread that weaves together meaning is my value for connection. Like, I think that is what led me into the adult industry. I think that's what prevented me from giving up drinking for a long time. Like, how am I going to socialize with people, right, if I'm not in a happy hour? Like, I think that's also something that led me into psychotherapy, and that weaves together the time with my daughter, is this, like, connection and relationships and intimacy are really important to me. And I think I can hold really tightly to that meaning, and I sort of crush it like a butterfly, you know, like the things that are important to us, like, we got to hold them like butterflies. And I think when I hold really tightly to those, that it dies in my hands. It just turns to mush. But I think in recovery and in this, like, ongoing healing process, I'm learning how to, like, hold the things that are important to me like I would a butterfly.
I love that. Absolutely. Not sure where Jennifer's gone. She'll probably pop back on in a second. Just listen, Jennie, you're just an amazing freaking person. I've done it all, seen it all. You know, I do a lot of TV. I hear a lot of show. I've read books and everything. I do all that shit. But I'm telling you what, I've never been so inspired about your story, about your bravery, about just the way you're walking people through this. I mean, it's just an absolutely phenomenal story, just like all of ours. I like phenomenal stories. I mean, I got dropped one day and I'm in a program. That doesn't interest me. you know, where's your courage? Where's the passion? Where's the struggle that you've been through to help others? Because if you haven't been through it, you can't do that. So I'm curious to know, when you came out of the industry and you was going around your normal day and somebody called you Jennie, how did that feel?
Disorienting, I think, is probably the best descriptor for that. You know, I think I got stuck on an idea, and that's sort of what I was thinking earlier when I was talking about like taking yourself too literally, like I am Penny Flame, right? Like, and then the sort of like lingering in the significance of like, who is Jennie? And so as that question, as the universe, as Dr. Drew, and as people started to pose this question of like, who are you? It was like, fuck, I felt like I was like somebody had like plopped me down in the middle of a Walmart. It was like in the gun section. Like, how the fuck did I get here? Like, what? Where am I? Like, I have no idea.
Like a relapse. Where am I?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I think sort of like reorienting to not necessarily who I am as this like piece of content as like Jennie, right? But like reorienting to like, what are the things that like matter most, and what are the things that fill my heart? Like, those are the things that I can walk towards. And in that process, I start to see like my actions and my experiences start to be the things that I rest on, because my mind is always changing, right? Like I'm good, I'm bad, I'm a piece of shit, I'm sober, am I sober if I'm not in AA? Like, what is this? Like all of these like this regurgitative like ongoingness in the mind. And after a period of time, like I look back at my experiences, I'm like, oh, I am someone who did this, and someone who did this, and someone who did this. And all of my actions start to build up to this sense of like who I am in this world and in this life. And like those actions really dictate who I am, and reinforce that I can choose who I become.
Yeah. And it really sounds like, you know, your circumstances had nothing to do with who you are, right? It's like, who are you here? Right.
Yeah.
When you take all of that away. I love that. Yeah. We didn't really get to talk about your new book, and you were what you've been studying around the subject of this book. So I'd love to just, if you could give us, you know, a quick snapshot into what you've been working on there.
Yeah, so I'm in the process of shopping around a new book on problematic smartphone use, and so examining the relationship that we have with technology and with screens and devices. I really do think, I don't want to say like, oh, it's the next big addiction, and also I think it is a thing that is consuming our attention and taking away from the precious moments of our lives. And so I created a 30-day, call it the Phone Zone Challenge. Right now, if it gets sold, it'll, like, I don't know if they'll fucking change it, whatever. I'm flexible, right? What's a name? But it's a 30-day curriculum examining the relationship that you have with your device, and it's designed to help you come off of autopilot and start to make really intentional, values-driven, committed actions, whether it's with your phone. Like, I'm learning Spanish through my phone. Like, that is a values-driven action. Like, the phone itself is not the bad thing, right? So so starting to look at like, what is the impact of screens? What is the impact of being on autopilot while you're on your screen and like while you're in your life, and doing some work around that.
I love it. Where can you find that?
So you can't find it yet because I'm in the process of shopping it. So if you're a publisher, holler. Yeah, so it is in the works, and I'd love to come back and talk about it when it gets sold.
Love that.
I think we're missing that as well. Is the only reason that drugs and alcohol seem to be a problem, and why people can't figure it's an immediate effect whenever we take drugs or alcohol. What we're not seeing is the immediate effect around cell phones and stuff like that. Again, we love doing research. We used to have a research girl that went and did this, and they ask 100 people, what's the first thing you do in the morning? And like 89% said, I get on Facebook, see what I've missed. Now, when that happens, we got a problem, but we're not going to see it. Something like 20% of people that have abducted or raped on the streets have been either on an iPod or music system or the iPhone, taking no notice of the outside world because you're dragged into that phone. I see people out for dinner and they're texting each other. What the fuck is that all about? You know, especially kids. It's like you can't really have communication with anybody unless it's through your iPhone or a computer. And I think the epidemic has already started with that. I just think we're not seeing, you know, how many parents do this? Oh, just buy an iPhone, keep it quiet for a bit.
Yeah.
Loads of parents do that because they can't be bothered, you know, just send them away. I did the same thing. I built a freaking nursery on the back of my house for about 50,000 back in the day in the 80s. That was a lot of money. Why did I do it? Because I wanted my kids to play? No, fuck no. I wanted to do it so I could go and drink where they were in the playroom at the back. How sad is that? And I think it's going to be the same with cell phones. When people are growing up, nobody's going to college anymore. Why would you go to college when you got Google free of charge? So we're going to see a mess coming up the next 10 or 20 years. We're going to see another epidemic on our hands that we can't control. So why are we not, and you are, why are we not attacking that now? Yeah. See, people are just blind unless it's, you know, unless the pharmaceutical companies can give you a pill and charge you for anything. They're not interested about our kids. You know, the government are not interested about our kids. You know, they just stick a Geiger counter next to a phone and see how much radiation comes off that. And they've got it here most of the time. Are you kidding me? What's that doing to the brain over a period of time? Just like smoking. What's it doing to the brain? But we're not going to find out for 10, 20 years. And is anybody listening to us right now? No, they're not. They're not listening to, we've got bigger problems.
So interestingly, we are starting to see a shift in like socioeconomic status, like where communities who are more well-resourced are often preventing their kids from accessing screens, and like they're not using iPads with as high as frequency as, and then in these like lower socioeconomic status communities, like screens are really being pushed. And this isn't to say that like people who don't have money are more likely to use phones, but it is to say that like there is some recognition, and it's sort of like infiltrating in like wealthier communities that like this is a problem, and it hasn't yet trickled down into these other communities. And so like this is going to be something that disproportionately impacts like people of color and like people from lower socioeconomic status. And like I think you're totally right. And like we are going to be another 10 to 20 years out before we really start to see the impact of this sort of like autopilot on screens. And also it ends up being a vehicle for success, like coding and learning how to use a screen. So it's like you know, overeating, right? Like we need to learn how to have this technology in our lives in a way that we can use it and it doesn't use us. And so and that takes a lot of attention and intention. And if we're all just sort of on autopilot consuming information, we lose that agency.
Yeah. And, you know, I think they've even been doing studies around people that have their phones in front of them when they're eating, or obesity than if you didn't have a phone in front of you. So, yeah, it is. It's fascinating. And so we have JennieKetchum.com where we can get a hold of you. And I just really want to say, like, it's so great to have a different conversation with you and to see you again, and nice to chat with you and just hear your story. And also thank you for your vulnerability, your connection, and allowing us to really see who you are.
Thanks, Jennifer. It was so nice to see you and spend time with you again today. So thank you for having me here. And Dr. Rob, thank you for like showing up and just like being you and sharing with me about your daughters. You know, like as a daughter who didn't talk to her dad for a long time, it took some work on my end to be able to open that door to him. And, you know, like my wish for you is that your daughter gets to do that work as well, so that that door can open. Forgiveness is really powerful, and I wish it for the both of you.
I think it'll come, Jenny. After, it might be 3 years now. Anyway, when she met me, she wanted to be a therapist. She wanted to specialize in neuro-linguistic programming. So we paid for her to go back to college. And she does our free stuff now. We get pro bonos that me and she just can't fit it in. So she hasn't actually had one. Well, she had one, it didn't turn up, but she hasn't actually had one yet. But, she then becomes a therapist for us, which is just mind-blowing that it's turned around. But
Yeah.
Jennie, just unbelievable. By the way, guys, welcome to the longest show on the Recovery Channel podcast that we've ever done. And I don't know about you, Jennifer, but I don't even think we're halfway through. I think we have to come back to this. And there's been about 3 people on this that we've interviewed, and just that's got tears in my eyes, because it's that genuineness, and it's that, almost can actually touch you from where we are. It's amazing. Your story's amazing. You are amazing. And I want to just leave you with this before we go, is I want to say thank you, not only for me and Jennifer, but all the hundreds of thousands of people that you have helped, because of the ripple effect. We never know how many people we've helped, and it's staggering when we find out. So thank you for being you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for being a great husband, a great mom, and a good friend. So we'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.